So welcome everybody. My name is Martin Cotter. I'm responsible for the industrial business at Analog Devices. And today I want to share some thoughts with you about how the embedded processing at the edge is transforming industry. It's transforming sustainability in terms of what the future of industry is going to look like. But it takes more than what we do. It takes governments, it takes market segments, it takes companies, and it takes individuals to make the difference that we need to make. So it's a pretty huge challenge that's ahead of us, but I think we look forward to the impact that we're going to make. When we look at this picture, I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for industrial to become the force for good in the world. If you take 1820 to 2020, you had this huge change, about 100x increase in global GDP. But that didn't come without a cost. At that time, you had almost a 700x increase in CO2. And from what we're seeing, between the average temperatures back in that time in 1820, there's about a 1.1 degree rise in temperatures worldwide. Now, the Paris Agreement has said we should go to 1.5 degrees, cap increase of 1.5. But that will take an 81% reduction in any emissions that we make overall on the planet. So industry has a huge part of this. We have to drive 2x efficiency to make that happen, and we have to change from the fossil fuel driving our energy to more renewable resources driving energy. So this is a pretty huge challenge for everybody. It's a huge challenge, but it's an exciting challenge, a challenge that we can really make a difference. So let's see more recently what's happened. If you look at the time between 1960 to 1980, you had this huge 50% increase in take-home salaries of middle class in America. So pretty big improvement in lifestyles. During that time, during the last 50 years, you've had 800 million people come above the poverty line in China, more than any time ever in our history in the past. And also, we've had this 43x increase in global GDP, so much bigger than the previous 150 years. But there's a problem. When you look at this picture, first of all in US, the increase in middle-class incomes has stalled. It's about 0.7% if you look at it over the same period. Secondly, 50% of the world survives on about $5.50 a day. And thirdly, you've got real problems with carbon footprint. This idea of a screw traveling 12,000 kilometers to be part of an end product, that's not sustainable, right? We need to change how we operate. So at one time, great successes. Now we've got challenges. When we look at this picture of waste, way too big in US, 7.6 billion tons. You look at this picture of where the energy comes from. 80% of energy comes from fossil fuels. In industry, about 30% of worldwide energy comes from industry. 20% more comes from buildings. So we have a real opportunity to change this picture of renewable energy. You look at one of the biggest challenges is about talent. 800,000 job openings in September of 22 in US. Today, interestingly, the 8 billionth person is predicted to be born today, most likely somewhere in India. So population has exploded. But some warning signs. If you look at the picture up to 2050, 8% of the population being over 65 goes to 16% of the population being over 65. That means that everybody working needs to support an extra person, right? So really big challenges on talent, capability of talent, also in terms of EV as a source of energy, and also in terms of waste and sustainability. So what if we were to make our industrial and our whole industrial process in terms of buildings sustainable? What would that look like? We believe there are 4 major themes that allow this to happen. One we're seeing this picture of automation. That's really transforming that ability to produce much more, higher productivity, with this increasing number, growing about 20% per year in terms of industrial robotics. When we look at digitalization, everything in the factory is being digitalized. What was kilobits of information is now 100 meg of information, and that will go to be gigabits of information. So this is what's allowing all that extra insight to come into an industry. When you look at renewables, electrification, we need to get the 2x efficiency of present industrial energy, but also there's this huge appetite for energy over the next 50 years or so. So by 2050, we'll get a 3x increase overall energy. So that has to come from renewable sources. And of course, we have these great innovations that are happening. So if you look at many, many cases of robotics or autonomous mobile robots in factories, you've got automation, you've got new processes. This is a case where for additive manufacturing, there's a 22% growth rate and also a huge improvement in cost of additive manufacturing. So manufacturing or production for the individual is becoming very much transformed. So our customers are reflecting these very different ways of working. When we look at ABB, it's all about electrification and automation. When we look at Schneider, we talk about automation sustainably, but it's a software-centric automation that allows for scaling. When we talk with Honeywell, again, it's this big shift from what would have been standard products that take a long time to develop, maybe 10 years or more, into much more of a software-centric platform. We need to do more with some. That could be an automated robot quieting down what's going on over there. So we need to do much more with a software-centric platform that can bring a whole body of collaborators together. And then when we talk about Rockwell Automation, again, it's this connected enterprise transforming what we do for industrial. Actually, that's green. He's plants. Those are plants. Of course, Siemens, pretty transformative when you look at automation, what's happening in terms of robotics, automation, efficiency. But this is now done with a huge software platform. I mean, who would have thought that NVIDIA would announce with Siemens this whole world of digital twin? So what that allows us to do is it allows hundreds of thousands of collaborators to come together to develop the future of industrial and do it much more efficiently. So I think there's a consensus that a transformation is happening and customers are ready for this major transformation. When we look at the picture of what will happen here, industrial solutions at scale really need this software world to be encapsulated around the hardware world. So this is the world of IT and OT coming together. I think it means that everybody has a big part of this. Everybody needs to think about this up front. There are some pretty amazing green shoots. When you look at the world of healthcare, the genome is now sequenced 600 times faster than it was in the past. That means that aging population can now have particular healthcare for the individual. When you look at the world of EV, the last 2 years saw this huge gigafactory built out, 10 million square feet. What we're seeing today is there's a plan for 6 other gigafactories, $300 billion worth of investment, digital factories, digitized factories that will drive efficiency of EV for many years to come. So our source of energy in industrial can now be renewable. And finally, you've got this picture of automation or robotics giving disruptive advantage on newer technologies. So in this case, additive manufacturing. So for example, all of us that might need a knee or a hip, these are okay for now, but at some point we'll need a knee or a hip to be individualized. So that will be additive manufacturing with real-time measurement right there to make sure that that's better than the mass-produced knee or the mass-produced hip. Or it could be a care practice for the individual's genome. So therefore, much more likely to have a better outcome transformed with sustainable efficiency in industrial. Really big problems being solved and being solved in collaboration with many players. When we look at different industries of the past, I brought along with me my 1990 mobile phone. I actually could make an audio call on this phone. I think it had about 10,000 lines of code to make this work, but it took a car battery to run it for half a day, right? So this was in a car. If you look at Exhibit B, you have the smartphone of today. My whole world is in this, right? So it's very different. I couldn't have got here on the airplane. My boarding pass was in it. Booking and transacting finance had to be done in this. All my healthcare information is in this. It's a very different world. So this world of entertainment, personalization, was all done with very large collaborators in the cell phone industry. If you look at today's world in automotive, a similar transformation is happening. It takes more collaborators, right? So it's hundreds of people working together. But the car is now changed to be, generally is moving towards electrification. It's transformed into an infotainment device. And effectively, if you look at the safety in a car, you get an average of what was before very few radar solutions on the car to be up to 16 radar solutions today with a 5 gig of data each inside in that car. So this is automotive is becoming a base station on wheels, right? So it's changed. If you look at the world of industrial, you see this transformation happening to industrial, right? We have this picture now where automation, efficiency, renewable, but this is different because it takes hundreds of thousands of collaborators. Lots and lots of companies around the world collaborating to make a different future. So that's again to drive this higher future efficiency and more sustainable picture. We believe that there are lots of attributes between architecture. You've got the semiconductor world and integrated hardware software platforms. In the past, a semiconductor company like ADI, we were very happy to work with the highest performance in terms of each of these core technologies: RF converters, amplifiers, interface, power, and sensors. But now, putting all these together in this world of software-centric solutions for industrial, we need to put software with those, but the really great thing is they're impacting the end use. So that means these end uses of healthcare, industrial, automotive, all require more silicon. In fact, about 2x silicon generally in these applications that are being disrupted. So the semiconductor world is now impacting the end application. That changes what we do. So we now have to work much earlier. Rather than a couple of years to develop a semiconductor product, we're going to need to think about the end application right up front with our end-use customers. Many cases, our customer's customer. So in a way, it's actually pretty exciting because it means that impact in the past, we can deliver that much faster. But it's a world of partnership, right? So in this picture, we need to have thought leaders at the end use working with solutions providers in the middle. Many cases, our own solutions have a much bigger impact in terms of that end use. Therefore, we need to understand the problem much earlier. When you look at the development side, in the past, it would take typically a product being developed, then a couple of years for it to introduce to the market, then maybe 5 to 6 years even before it gets adopted by an industrial use. That's too slow. The advantage of the innovation is gone by the time it takes to deploy. Therefore, we need a different approach. And that is working with all of those players in the value chain to speed up that. And of course, the big transformation is getting to this world of individualized manufacturing where smarts at the edge, AI, machine learning, transforms the value that we generate. Take, for example, condition-based monitoring. Having this adapted to every end use, being able to predict that particular motor, improve that particular motor, is now possible with much higher performance edge-based processing. So it's a world of great challenge, but a world of great excitement. We're seeing this operate in our Catalyst Centre, which is beside our R&D centre in Ireland, about 1,500 engineers. But what's happening differently is our customers and our customer's customer are bringing people to our centre to speed up this innovation. So what would have taken perhaps 20 different customer visits over 2 years, we now have engineers working on the problem together, and instead of being 2 years, they're learning real time. So maybe 2 months to mature a particular robotic solution or to mature a particular sensing application for industrial. Pretty much the answer that we think is needed to make the breakthrough that we know is required. So feeling pretty good about this level of collaboration. In many cases, you'll see that end-use equipment which has got that vision of what we want to transform. So one such example is this factory in a box. So imagine a case where robotics applied to a particular problem can be put into a container, and that becomes the factory for that individualized production. So this is a pretty picture of the building. But inside the building, you have a lot of exciting things happening. So here is the example of the fully automated, individualized robotic production to be able to customize something to a particular result in terms of physical production for healthcare, or it could be a care practice. All driving to this very different outcome. So some examples from our collaborators, J&J and SICK in this case. So for each of the parties involved, this is pretty exciting. In our case, our solutions that would have taken years to adopt are now accelerated. So if you look at the picture in terms of vibration sensing, the second one up at the top left is a 60 gigahertz interface replacing what would have been a very old, power inefficient mechanical coupling. That wears out. It's not very efficient. And over time, it takes a huge carbon footprint to produce. Instead, we've got a wireless 60 gig interface. If you look at the picture in terms of gripper, it's still a very high precision. Maybe it's taking tissue. It could be taking particular components. It could be sterilizing, as was in the picture there. You look at the picture on the bottom, this is really the requirement of intelligent edge processing, being able to look at 3D pictures of whatever is being sensed and be able to decide right at the edge on what happens with them. So we are very excited about this type of picture. For this to happen, we're inspired by thought leaders, and that thought leader is what brings these communities together. So in terms of open source, this whole foundation here is all about accelerating technologies with big communities. So I'd like to introduce you today to the thought leader of this particular factory in a box. So here I'd like to welcome on stage Mark McConnell, who's the head of Advanced Technology Center, whose really brainchild is behind all this. So Mark, I have to give you your very own mic.
Thanks very much, Martin.
So Mark is going to tell us about, you've seen this picture of factory in a box, but the journey is only beginning. So it's about accelerated industrial innovation.
Okay, does this work? Good. So I'm delighted to be here today. Being, I don't know, called a thought leader in this space is a bit of a stretch. I guess I'm definitely the voice of the customer that analog would not normally see, because I would have been disconnected by 2 or 3 layers of service providers and folks who do make my world real. But this ecosystem that's been developed between us has been really invigorating for us as people who are trying to decide what the future of supply chain for healthcare is going to look like. And it's been rapidly accelerated by daily interaction in a lab like the Catalyst with people who understand what's technically possible way outside our comfort zone. So this whole space of creating collaborative robots in new factories that are self-deterministic and can do their own thing and reconfigure to do the next customized object. You know, it was a pipe dream 5 years ago. We're building it now. You know, we're talking about deploying it in the next year. And it's really become an interesting space where it unlocks the future of healthcare for us. You know, we're making massive inroads in things like cell gene therapy, but we don't know how to bring it to the customer. This kind of activity is making that real. That's changing the whole dynamic of how humanity interacts with the future of where this whole space can get to, right? So this factory in a box, we have by design is an ugly-looking 20-foot container with very ugly-looking robots, and it's designed to not look finished. You know, I could have given you a more sexier graphic than this, for sure, of what the finished article looks like. But bring in the robot suppliers and the sensor people and the software developers all into one space to allow us to create this it's been an incredible journey. And I think it's been recognized in the Irish ecosystem particularly. It's been recognized as being the way forward, and we're getting a lot of government support. We're getting a lot of academic support. You know, it seems to be a method for successful collaboration. So I want to call out Analog and SICK, who are going to join us later, in particular for being very proactive in this space. You know, having the dream with us to come along and invent something and develop something that's a key enabler for this tech. Martin showed you his old mobile phone there a while ago. I'm going to show you the first prototype of something that we believe is necessary to enable a robotics layer to become intelligent. So this is like a communication device or a sensor, a set of sensors for a machine. You know, I described it earlier as a mobile phone for a machine, but a mobile phone is not just a communication device. A mobile phone enables a human to interact with the outside world. You know, and it adds sensors that the human doesn't have. It adds a lot of layers of complexity and intelligence that the human doesn't have. So for an existing system, if you can give it an injection of intelligence and communication and sensorization, then it's an incredible opportunity for us to be able to think, where can we go next with this entire space? Yeah, that's about it. We'll leave you at that.
Thank you, Mark. Can you stay with us? You're here to answer the hard questions, Mark, yourself and Kai.
Good.
Thank you. So you can see how this vision of factory in a box has much more layers to it. So Mark is pointing to some of the newer layers that are maybe, they look smaller, but they're probably huge impact in terms of how robotics and automation is going to transform industry. When we look at the world of software, and we think as a company who does a lot of smart edge processing, we think about the precision of everything we do. But when you look at it, the need to have that encapsulated in software is becoming a bigger and bigger need. So if you look at something like a robotic solution, here we have an encapsulation of an autonomous mobile robot with precision motion control. It needs efficient power, so a trinamic, very efficient motor to drive that. And this adaptive sensing for navigation between time of flight. You also have inertial MEMS units for the right positioning. And of course, intelligent processing with AI. So many collaborators are part of this, and part of that also is an open source 5G network. So we have all of this now as part of a full robotic open source solution. So that means at the very beginning, our semiconductor is now prepared to be adopted by a big group of collaborators. So there could be as many as 20,000 innovators working in an imaging open source forum, right? But it takes leaders to take on this challenge and then bring the open source community together, right? So I'm delighted today again to welcome another great collaborator. So Kai Furstenberg is with SICK, who has worked with us on many of these solutions, particularly on the robotics one. Kai is the Senior Vice President of R&D at SICK and Innovation. So Kai, if you could come on and tell us how the future of this looks.
Well, thank you, Martin. This is really brilliant, and I like the opportunity that we're standing, the three of us, here on this stage. And I really enjoyed when you came from the challenge where all our generation members facing it, the climate change and all these environment changes. And you really perfectly derived that technology matters.
Yeah.
And if we do well, technology will be the one who's really giving us the chance to solve it. And I hope we solve it in our generation. Yeah, we made lots of this happen in our generation as well. Well, excellent intro, yeah? And in 15 minutes, this is brilliant, yeah? And now we're talking about automation. Yeah? And I remember that Mark mentioned the layers in between their end customers. By the way, you are our end customer. They are usually our suppliers, and now we're mixing it up. Yeah, ADI brought in Johnson & Johnson asking for a solution from us, and let's do it jointly. Yeah. By the way, I'm with the SICK group, and SICK produce sensors and sensor systems, and we develop them as well. We do this for factory automation. Yeah, and there are lots of changes happening at the moment. Electrical vehicles, for example, yeah. Logistics automation, and you can imagine how much this changed the last 2 years. Yeah, almost everything which reaches our home is now packed in boxes in between. And we do process automation because our founder, Erwin Sick, already has seen this as very important to get really rid of the exhaust of industry, and we are measuring the exhaust at the chimneys of our industry. Well, and I'm saying this because I really love the idea that we are not blamed as the ones who are really getting jobs from people all over the world. Yeah, this is up to 10 years ago. Automation meant, well, you're just making unemployment. Now, under these new challenges, automation is really helping us to keep industry here in Europe, here in the US, in our Western world. Yeah? Otherwise, it would be too expensive. When two people leaving the workers' market, just one enters, and you can count what this means for the next 10 years. It's a challenge still, but automation can help to solve this. And I love the idea of your catalyst center. Yeah, bringing people together, bringing experts together to solve jointly issues. So this means the layers in between the ADI and the end customers. Now these layers are in parallel and quite well aligned. And this is what we're doing. I would call it some kind of experiment, how this works out. Because the goal is to make it more flexible, more dynamic, and serving the best solution for our customers. And we have them already on board. They really put lots of nice ideas into us, and we have to really think about how we can solve this. And coming from this, it means from a broad perspective that digitalization and Industry 4.0 really questioning our traditional business models. This is true for SICK, this is true for ADI as well. And what we're doing is joining our forces in this kind of Catalyst Center, but as well in all our other projects, joining our forces to find the best solution for our customer and learning from each other. And this is very, very beneficial, what we see here. In the meanwhile, if we're looking here at the picture on the right, there are more than 80 components of ADI inside there. These wonderful, nice chips which integrate a whole PCB in one single chip. And this helps us as well addressing the needs of our customers. But keeping all this in one boat, this really will give us a chance to accelerate the development directly to the needs of our customers, which is wonderful. Well, since we're just in the starting phase, we do this since 1 year now, since last March, I'm really looking forward what we will do next year as new thing. In parallel, we will make this happen in real.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you very much.
Kai. Well, I'd like to thank Kai and Mark. Kai, you have to stay up here. When you look at this, I'm very excited by this sense of purpose, and I think every time we hire a new employee, I'm hearing their excitement about this sense of purpose. This is a time where industry will really make the difference. And when you look at the challenge that we all have, it's solving problems that the aging population needs, it's solving problems that the sustainable world needs, and I think we're doing it very differently at a much faster speed. So with that, I'd like to thank you, very much welcome you to visit us at our booth in Hall C4, booth 125. But I think now are very happy to take any questions or any comments you might have about what you've seen here in terms of this accelerated innovation. So thank you. Nitin?
Maybe you can just join me for a few minutes while we us just discuss what you've just talked about
Sure.
before we go to our panel session. But I think what's quite clear from what you've said is partnerships and collaboration, but getting involved from a chip manufacturer point of view, getting involved at a higher level. What does that entail, and how do you engage with each other to enable that?
Well, I think I can talk first to it from a chip perspective. Before, I think we would have waited until the chip was almost released before we talked to any of our great partners like Kai or Mark. But now, right at the beginning, we have to go and bother these two gentlemen way at the start before we ever release the product. Of course, we were always very software centric in doing a chip development. But now I think this brings it about 2 years forward. So for me, that's the difference. It accelerates the power of the chip to the end solution way faster than before.
And may I add here, because this is a perfect example, not just you were waiting involving us. We were waiting that you brought this chip up, and then we started a sensor development, which means we add another 2 years to this. Now we align very early, and when you are ready with the chip, we are ready with the development, and we save in total 3 to 4 years. It's amazing.
So Mark, you've got way more time.
Well, that's exactly the opportunity is. We traditionally are constrained by what's been provided to us by the solution provider. So who's going to build our factory, who's going to build the machines, who's going to build the production system? And that's constrained by all this thought, I could do this, and I could do this, and then I could do this. If you bypass 3 layers of that, and you go straight to the capability in the beginning, I think we've jumped 5 or 10 years on one use case, like AGVs, robotics, this example that Kyle showed. I think we have leaped past where we can go with wireless in this space. Now all of a sudden the problem is not what I can do with the AGV, it's how do I command the AGV in a busy factory. And we've already, the first 5G industrial network was set up in one of my sites in Ireland. It was the first deployment of a 5G commercial network in the country. But it was driven by this interaction.
Yeah.
And
one of the things that's not obvious is we wouldn't know what to do in terms of adapting our new product if it weren't for learning this earlier.
But one of the things, the focus is intelligence at the edge. Do you have an idea as the end application developer what kind of intelligence you can put in, or where do you get involved with a company like ADI to say, well, we want to do this, or do you do it very conceptually and then say what can be done?
So for me, I'm relying on the evolution of cognitive control in the robotics world to replace human intervention. So, and then you match that with flexible manufacturing demand. So I'm already working on flexible manufacturing. How does flexible manufacturing turn into self-deterministic manufacturing?
Okay.
How do you end up eliminating quality control and replacing it by active closed loop, on the edge, reactive control loops? So for me, it's all little building bricks of control architecture, decision engines, creating these libraries of capability that I can stack on top of each other and then create very autonomous, self-aware systems.
And from a census point of view, I mean, how much intelligence? We're going to have panel discussions on some of this today and tomorrow, but how much intelligence can you put in there, do you think?
I think before coming to this dedicated question, which is quite important, where to distribute the intelligence is, we have to think about we're having quite complex challenges, yeah, which usually doesn't fit into one brain, and it's harder if you spread this around. This domain knowledge of our customers usually it doesn't reach you in the standard case.
Exactly.
So, and pretty often we are the translator into the chip business of their domain knowledge, your application knowledge. But you can imagine we lose in this line something because we do interpretation as well. Putting this all together helps a lot. And now coming back to the question, where do we need to put the intelligence? And the answer is where it is most efficient.
Yeah.
It can be in the chip level, and we place it there for sure. It is in the sensor level, in the sensor system level, or even, in the fab level,
Cloud.
Okay. Final word, Martin?
No, I think you've heard very much this partnership in action. I really appreciate Mark and Kai, not only for joining me here on this great event with you, Nitin, but more in terms of this newer thinking and how we operate. So I'm very much looking forward to what we can do in the next year, in the next couple of years. It was not possible to make this kind of impact before. So I think it takes a village. This is a great village.
So my takeaway from this is it's about a partnership, collaboration, but going up higher up in the value chain to enable that to happen.
Exactly. Make an impact.
Make an impact.
And what we need for this is trust.
Thank you.
It's the basis of all. Yeah, and with those gentlemen, we're working together since many, many years, and it helps a lot that we have a very good, trustful basis.
So I think we will demonstrate a win in this space.
Yeah.
And then we need to show how it works and encourage others to do the same.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. And
Thank you, Nitin.
please, a round of applause for our gentlemen here.
Thank you.
Thank you.